The docking clamps hissed as the Human Federation envoy vessel locked into place against the Virexian citadel. Commander Elias Voss stood at the exit ramp, spine straight, hands clasped behind his back, expression unreadable. His breath fogged lightly inside the pressure-controlled vestibule, even though the atmosphere had already been adjusted to human tolerance. The doors parted with a soft thrum. Waiting on the other side stood High Lady Thalexa Vire, encased in silver and obsidian robes that shimmered like liquid night. Her long fingers were clasped at her waist, her expression regal, impassive. Her eyes, pale, almost crystalline, met his without warmth. "You are late," she said. Elias stepped forward, unflinching. "Your rotation cycle lost 5 minutes in translation from Sol Standard." A minor discrepancy. Her lips twitched, not quite a smile. Humans are always adjusting reality to suit themselves. "Reality adjusts for those who survive it," he said coolly. Silence stretched between them, taut, but not hostile. Observers might have mistaken it for mutual disdain. It wasn't. She turned, robe whispering over the sleek black floor, and led him into the heart of the citadel without another word. He followed, watching the intricate architecture, impossible curves of alloy and psionically reinforced glass, the walls faintly pulsing with thought energy. The Virexians didn't just build, they willed their structures into form. They passed a group of armored guards, their features sharp and inhuman. Not one blinked. Elias felt the weight of eyes on his back, and minds probing at the edges of his awareness, testing, evaluating. But nothing could breach the barriers he'd trained for since his teens. "You're shielding," Thalexa said without turning. "I was invited as a guest. Not a specimen." She stopped abruptly and turned to face him. "You misunderstand. I wasn't requesting permission. I was observing." Elias took one step closer, deliberate, unhurried. "Then let's both observe each other clearly." The space between them crackled. Not from movement, but something subtler. Something rising. Thalexa's nostrils flared the faintest bit. She tilted her head as if assessing a strange animal. "Your kind always presume access where none is granted." He smiled, slow and sharp. "We don't presume. We earn." Interesting, she thought. But said nothing. The diplomatic chamber was a circle suspended in midair, walls transparent to the stars beyond. One table, 2 chairs. No guards. No recorders. Trust or performance, it wasn't clear which. She gestured to the seat opposite her. "Do you find this environment comfortable? I've trained in less breathable atmospheres." Elias sat without removing his gloves. She did not sit. She remained standing, hands behind her back, gaze on the infinite blackness outside. "This treaty," she said. "Your federation is too fractured to enforce it. Your leadership changes every decade. Your promises vanish with administrations. And yet we're still here," Elias said. "Still willing to talk. What does that say about us? That you're stubborn. That we're determined." She turned to him, her expression unreadable. Or desperate. His eyes locked onto hers. Or honest. That gave her pause. For the next hour, they danced through negotiations. Land use on neutral moons. Shared mining rights. Restricted technological transfers. The words were strategic, clinical, yet underneath, a current of something else pulled at them both. She spoke with chilling precision. He answered with lean, pointed logic. Every time she tried to assert dominance, he mirrored it, not with aggression, but grounded calm. Not once did he break eye contact. Eventually, "Saturday you came with a reputation," she said, folding her hands. "Tactical mind. Battle-forged. Unshakable. And you," he asked. "You came with no reputation. You've never left the citadel. You've never even spoken directly to a human before." Her smile was thin. "Because I didn't need to. That's what makes this interesting," Elias replied. "You don't need to be here. But you are." She studied him. He was handsome, in that rough-cut human way, tall, scarred in places, with eyes like hammered steel. But it wasn't appearance that caught her. It was presence. Unafraid. Controlled. As though he saw through the silk and psionics and still wasn't impressed. You think you're a match for me? She asked quietly. I don't think, Elias said. I know. Thalexa's pupils narrowed. We're not equals. Not yet. That stirred something inside her, a flicker of emotion she'd spent decades suppressing. Curiosity. Frustration. Maybe even intrigue. She rose again, slower this time, circling behind him. You're braver than most humans I've encountered through the network. He remained still. Maybe because I don't let others define what I'm capable of. The room pulsed with unspoken energy. She leaned close, just near enough for him to feel the chill of her telepathic aura prickling against his skull. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Elias turned his head slightly. Then enlighten me. They stood again, face to face, breath to breath. She could crush his mind with a single mental spike. He could level her ego with a single truth. But neither moved. A silent standoff that wasn't about dominance, but gravity. Thalexa stepped back, breaking the moment. She adjusted the silver clasp on her wrist. You'll have quarters in the lower tower. Guarded, of course. Of course. She hesitated. We'll continue discussions tomorrow. You'll be expected at sunrise. Virexian time. Elias nodded and turned to leave. But as he reached the threshold, she called out, one more thing. He paused. Her voice dropped half an octave. Do not mistake proximity for permission, Commander. He didn't turn around. And don't mistake curiosity for weakness, High Lady. Then he walked out, the doors sealing behind him. And for the first time in decades, Thalexa Vire stood in her private chamber, uncertain. Thalexa stood alone in the memory garden, an illusionary sanctuary only accessible to Virexian telepaths. Crystalline trees pulsed with her thoughts, their glowing branches reflecting every fracture in her mental calm. The garden had always been her refuge. Today, it offered no peace. She couldn't erase the way Elias had looked at her. Not with desire, something far more dangerous. Recognition. She clenched her fingers behind her back, staring at a floating blossom. It dissolved under her gaze. What does he see? The door to her private chambers slid open. Thalexa didn't look up as her personal assistant, Calthera, entered. My lady, the High Council has requested your summary on the human's behavioral evaluation. I'll send it when it's ready, she said without turning. Calthera hesitated. You've never delayed a report before. I've never hosted him before. The silence that followed was heavier than disapproval, it was confusion. Thalexa dismissed her with a slight nod. She heard the doors seal. She remained in the garden for 3 more minutes. Then she erased it. Elias sat on the edge of his assigned cot, rolling a dense alloy chip between his fingers. The room was functional, no comforts, only control. A single window offered a sliver of black space streaked with faint star movement. Guards outside pretended to be indifferent. He knew better. He'd spent a decade mastering military diplomacy, surviving combat missions on oxygen-thin moons and riots on Mars Station. But Thalexa Vire, she was a puzzle without a pattern. And yet, something in her cracked during their first meeting. Not visible to others, but he'd felt it. He stood and activated the interface pad. Request, access to central archive logs on Virexian emotional collapse incidents. Focus, High Council bloodlines. The screen blinked red. Access denied. Of course. He smiled grimly. That answers more than you meant to hide. The next morning, Thalexa entered the diplomatic chamber 10 minutes early, a breach of Virexian etiquette. She told herself it was strategy. Elias arrived on time. Not a second early. Not a second late. You shield well, she said, not looking at him as she Saturday. I've had practice. She tilted her head. You think shielding your emotions earns you power? No, he said. But not letting them control me does. She met his eyes. This time, the silence between them wasn't empty. It was a negotiation of another kind. They spoke for 30 minutes on resource allocations. Neutral. Tense. Controlled. Then Elias changed the subject. Is it true that your people punish public grief with exile? Thalexa's fingers twitched. Irrelevant. I think it's very relevant. Her gaze sharpened. Are you implying we lack compassion? I'm suggesting you fear it. A faint tremor passed through her shoulders, quickly gone. She leaned forward, voice low. You presume too much. He leaned forward too. You bury too much. A beat of silence. Then she stood abruptly. This meeting is adjourned. That night, Elias took a detour during his escorted return. I'd like to see the sky vault, he told the guards. It's off limits. I'm sure High Lady Vire would allow it. The guards exchanged glances. Then one spoke into his comm. A moment later, a terse response, proceed. 1 level only. No contact. The sky vault was a suspended bridge of glass and dark stone, open to stars in all directions. A meditative place. A holy one, by Virexian standards. Elias stood at its center, arms folded, letting the silence stretch. He didn't turn when he heard her footsteps. You enjoy bending rules, Thalexa said from behind. I enjoy seeing who enforces them. She walked to his side, hands clasped. You're not the first to stand here, hoping to understand us. I'm not here to understand, he replied. I'm here to see what you're hiding. She turned to him, startled by his bluntness. What makes you so sure I'm hiding anything? He turned too, face close now. Because you wear silence like armor. Something broke in her gaze, just for a heartbeat. You're observant, she admitted. I have to be. They stood facing one another, the stars behind them cold and distant. Finally, Thalexa said, my sister tried to marry outside our caste. A Virexian hybrid. The council dissolved the union. She spiraled. She died 2 years later. Officially, psychic rupture. Unofficially, grief. Elias absorbed it. And you never speak of her. We're not allowed to mourn weakness. Not even family. His voice dropped. But you remember. I don't have the luxury of forgetting. Neither spoke. Then Elias said, I'm sorry. She looked at him like she wasn't sure whether to hit him or weep. Instead, she turned away. You shouldn't have come to this place. I didn't come for the treaty. She stopped. Slowly turned. Then why? His answer was simple. You. Shock flickered in her eyes, followed by disbelief, then something else. Not surrender. Not acceptance. Fright. The idea that someone could see her fully and still stay. I need time, she whispered. I'll give you honesty. Time's up to you. He stepped back. Left her standing alone beneath the stars. Back in her chambers, Thalexa removed her robes and dropped them unceremoniously. She stood in the center of her quarters, trembling not from fear, but from recognition. He wasn't like the others. He didn't obey, didn't retreat, didn't try to conquer her. He met her. Her thoughts spiraled into dangerous territory, visions of futures that couldn't exist, of walls crumbling. She walked to the mirror. Her reflection stared back, polished, perfect, untouchable. And for the first time in her life, she wanted to shatter it. The storm started before dawn. Not on the Citadel's surface, there were no weather systems here, but in the psychic field. Thalexa felt it pulsing before she opened her eyes. A tightening. A signal. She sat up slowly, sweat cooling on her neck. Someone had probed her thoughts while she slept. Uninvited. Unauthorized. She rose and sealed her chamber with 5 layers of mental encryption. Only one mind knew how to reach that deep. Elias was in the training hall, palms pressed to the composite mat, body still from meditation. He knew better than to spar here. This wasn't the kind of place where violence was tolerated outside ceremony. But silence was its own battlefield. The door behind him hissed open. He didn't need to turn. You looked inside my head last night. Thalexa stepped in, unmasked fury in her voice. I didn't mean to. I dreamed you. That's not the same as an accident. She moved closer, tension sharp in every step. Your thoughts weren't closed. I heard them like echoes. What did you hear? That you're hiding something. He stood, met her stare. Aren't we both? Thalexa clenched her fists. I am bound by rules. You are not. No, he said calmly, but I'm bound by truth. Which you keep avoiding. You're reckless. Emotional. Impulsive. You confuse pressure with intimacy. Maybe, Elias said, stepping closer. Or maybe I see you clearer than anyone ever has. She stopped, caught between defiance and uncertainty. I felt your grief, she whispered. The weight you carry. And I felt your silence. It's not armor anymore. It's a cage. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't deny it. What do you want from me, Elias? He answered without hesitation. Everything you're told to suppress. They didn't speak again for hours. But that night, the Citadel entered emergency lockdown. A suspected breach in the lower fusion core sealed off entire sectors. Diplomats were confined to quarters. Security roamed with rifles and masks, though there was no confirmed threat. Except the one neither of them had named. Thalexa was alone in her chamber when the second surge hit, a wave of raw emotion not her own. Fury, confusion, heat. Elias. She didn't think. She acted. He was in his quarters, shirt off, pacing like a caged predator. His jaw was clenched, muscles twitching beneath scarred skin. She stepped in without knocking. The guards didn't stop her. They wouldn't dare. I felt it, she said. What's happening? Elias turned. They scanned me. In my sleep. I woke up mid-sweep. That's forbidden. He laughed, dry and hollow. And yet it happened. She walked to him, stopping only a foot away. What did they find? Pain. Desire. Defiance. He met her eyes. And you. Her breath caught. You're compromising your position, she said, not moving. I was never trying to keep it. The silence turned molten. Then he reached for her, but paused, his fingers inches from her cheek. Say it, he said. Say you feel it too. She didn't speak. Instead, she closed the space between them and kissed him. It wasn't soft. It wasn't elegant. It was hungry years of denial crushed into seconds. His hands found her waist, hers tangled in his hair. She tasted of electricity and cold air. He pulled her closer, and she didn't resist, she pressed harder, like she needed to erase the gap that had always existed between their worlds. Clothes fell away, layers, both physical and mental. She let him touch the places no one had dared, her neck, her back, her mind. Their thoughts collided, wild, uncontrolled. A telepathic spiral neither had practiced, only felt. She saw his past. War. Fire. Guilt. He saw hers. Loneliness. Control. A sister's funeral with no mourners. For one breathless hour, they existed outside time, no caste, no title, no hierarchy. Only skin and soul. Only two broken beings, finally whole. Later, she lay beside him, not speaking. He traced a scar on her shoulder, a wound she never allowed anyone to see. How long will they let this stand? They won't, she said. But I won't deny it either. You'll lose your seat. I'm not sure I ever wanted it. He studied her in the dim light. You were born to rule. Then maybe I was born to break the rules too. The Citadel returned to normal operation by morning. No explanation was given for the lockdown. No press briefings, no apologies. But something had shifted. Thalexa entered the council hall later that day in full regalia. Her poise was perfect. Her voice, crystalline. But as she spoke of trade routes and border protocols, she caught a glimpse of a silent observer in the shadows. A council seer. Watching her too closely, Elias was summoned to an unregistered medical exam that afternoon. 3 Virexian monitors entered the room. He didn't flinch. When they asked him to disrobe, he laughed. Try reading my mind instead. That's what you want. They didn't respond. They didn't need to. He was back in his quarters within 10 minutes. No questions asked. But the message was clear. They knew. That night, she came to him again. No words. Just eyes. She stood by his bed, out of armor, out of masks. He took her hand. They said nothing. But everything had changed. By morning, the Citadel's atmosphere had shifted. Not in the air, still sterile, calculated, but in its rhythm. Doors lingered a second longer before opening. Guards spoke in clipped tones. Eyes lingered where they once passed over. Silence held new meaning. Elias noticed. He stood in the Hall of Echoes, awaiting a scheduled debriefing. No escort. No warning. Just an invitation stamped with the Council's seal and delivered without explanation. A trap-wearing protocol. The doors parted. 5 Virexian councillors sat in crescent formation, all robed in silver so bright it hurt to look at. Thalexa was not among them. One of them spoke without moving his mouth. You have been found in violation of interspecies intimacy protocol. A breach punishable by repatriation or neutralization. Elias didn't blink. You've been watching. We do not need to watch. The mind speaks louder than words. Then you know what she felt too. They ignored that. Another councillor leaned forward, voice ice-thin. You will board the next Federation vessel. Your diplomatic immunity is revoked. And Thalexa. A pause. Then, she is being reviewed. Rage flared behind his eyes, but he stayed still. Controlled. You're afraid of her. She broke no law, only expectation. You mistake instability for courage. I mistake fear for governance. The chamber fell silent. Then the center councillor rose. You will leave within the hour. If you fail to comply, you'll kill me, Elias said flatly. Let's not dress it up. They didn't deny it. Thalexa was not in her chambers. Not in the vault. Not even in the neural gardens. Elias found her in the one place no one would think to look, the atrium beneath the Citadel's core, a place built for reflection, not occupation. She sat cross-legged on the floor, robes discarded, hands pressed to the energy conduit. Blue light pulsed up her arms like veins of liquid starlight. You weren't supposed to come here, she said quietly. They're expelling me. She looked up. Her eyes were calm. Too calm. I know. They're watching you. She nodded. And you're letting them? No, she said. I'm baiting them. Elias crouched in front of her. Then what's the move? I speak. Before the full council. No prepared speech. No protocol. That's suicide. No, she said. It's truth. And if that's a death sentence, so be it. He studied her, saw the resolve beneath the stillness. This wasn't rebellion. It was clarity. You'll need an exit, he said. I'll need you. The Hall of Truth hadn't been used in over a century. It was meant for emergencies, real ones. Not emotional ones. But Thalexa called a full session. And they came. Over 1,000 Virexian minds filled the chamber, psychic tension like a wire stretched too thin. Even Elias, behind the security field, felt it pressing in. Hungry. Suspicious. Alert. Thalexa stepped forward, unrobed, unguarded. Her voice echoed, no amplification needed. I was raised to believe control was virtue. That emotion was corruption. That unity meant silence. But I have seen another way. Felt another way. Murmurs rippled through the chamber like distant thunder. I broke no laws, she continued. I honored no lies. She paused. His name is Elias Voss. Human. And I chose him. A gasp swept the room. I chose honesty. I chose vulnerability. And I will not apologize. A sharp voice cut through the tension. Counselor Jenna. You disgrace your line. She turned to him. No. I redeem it. Jenna rose. You forfeit your rank. She met his gaze, unwavering. Then I leave it behind. Silence fell like a blade. She turned to Elias across the divide. Are you ready? He stepped past the barrier. No one stopped him. Hand in hand, they walked down the center aisle. The crowd parted, but didn't reach. They didn't speak until they reached the hangar. A rogue vessel, barely legal, barely functional, waited, fueled and open. Elias glanced at her. You sure? She smiled. Not the cold kind. Not the practiced kind. The real kind. Yes. They boarded. The hatch sealed behind them. Stars stretched in every direction as the ship broke from Citadel orbit. Elias set coordinates blindly anywhere that wasn't there. Thalexa stood at the viewport, robes gone, hair unbound. She turned to him. We have no status now. No rank. No power, Elias agreed. She walked closer. Only each other. He kissed her before the words even finished. And it wasn't desperate this time. It was free. Far behind them, the council argued definitions. Was she rogue? Was he criminal? Had they witnessed treason? Or transformation? But no one could erase what had been seen. The Citadel would never be the same again.